大家好啊，今天是2024年的12月17号。今天给大家分享洪浩的这个英文采访啊。大家都知道，洪浩分享的可信度呢是英文大于粤语大于普通话，而且在英文分享中，洪浩可能更敢说一些啊。好，我们一起来看一下洪浩分享的内容啊。
How I do want to get your sense in very quickly on how you're looking at the whole currency situation, because everybody's talking about how the currency might be weaponized against tariffs.
Yes. Well, from the trade war episode in 2018, right? So the Chinese currency did depreciate substantially during that episode, and as you can see, in early October, the Chinese currency was trading below 7, and now it's around 7.3. There's already quite a bit of depreciation going on there, and I think the market is looking out for a Fed that is cutting slower, and also a PBOC that has to cut to counter all the pressure economically speaking, and also all the pressure from Donald Trump as well. So one shouldn't be too surprised to see the depreciation pressure on the Chinese yuan would continue for some time.
And so where do you think that weakness would take the Chinese yuan? How much would the authorities want it to weaken or allow it to weaken, actually?
Yeah, I think one shouldn't be too surprised to see, it's 7.5, 7.6 and above. Right, so in some extreme scenario, if Donald Trump really slapped on, 60%, 100% tariff, it would be way beyond 8. Right, so, this is not a scenario that we're looking for, because, if it happens, right, so the pressure on the Hong Kong stock, for example, and also on the Chinese asset price will be quite substantial as well. But having said that, because the U.S. Dollar strength has been relentless this year, especially after Donald Trump won the election, right, so it's up 5-6% since then. Right, so all the emerging market currency is feeling the pressure as well. So I think in this scenario, a very strong U.S. dollar is actually a headwind for the U.S. economy and also for the global economy as well. So one should be look out for some potential scenario that a Plaza Accord, a new Plaza Accord could be happening in the coming years. Because now the U.S. dollar is, excessively strong, and also the Chinese currency is weak, and at the same time, the Chinese export has been very, very strong as well.
Hao Hong, given you're saying that sort of monetary policy will be used in the meantime as we sort of enter a couple of months of policy dead zone, because we don't really have much going on as far as China is concerned. And no doubt we'll see a lot of reaction to the headlines coming out of the US as we await the NPC. I mean, how many quarters do you anticipate then, if we know that the cost of capital is not the constraint here, to see an actual improvement in, as far as deflationary pressures and some of the rebound in corporate earnings? How many quarters do you anticipate that's going to take, given we've already seen probably the best of 2 years of continued relentless support for the property sector, and only today you're just seeing marginal improvement?
Yeah, I think that if the property sector doesn't recover, then it will be very difficult for loan demand to expand. Right? So if you want to prop up the economy, if you want to maintain a growth target of around 5%, then you would have to reinvest in many of the production capacities and create even more overcapacities. Right? So the pressure on pricing and also the pressure on your foreign trade partner would be like so substantial. So I think right now there's no easy way out. The central government is the only part of the economy that has the balance sheet and has the ability to expand. And I think in the last quarter, we've seen some moves already, right? So for example, raising the quota for bond issuance, helping the local government to resolve the debt load situation. But it's not nearly enough, right? So the headwind, the deflationary headwind that we're facing, it has been on for more than 2 years now. In upstream, it's close to 3 years. Right, so I think anyone in China, if you're traveling in China these days, you will notice that prices has come down substantially.
Yeah, and so if we're likely to see this sort of persistent deflationary pressures and, the profits at these companies being weighed on, the margins continuing to be squeezed, as you've sort of alluded to, what do you focus on in this market then? You said perhaps pay attention to the A500 mid to small cap tech stocks. Is this sort of an area you believe could be fairly insulated from sort of the continued macro headwinds?
Yeah, well, I think they will outperform the rest of the market, because these are the guys that focus on domestic economy, and also they're likely to get policy subsidies and help from the government. I think already, right? So if you look at the rally, the rebound since late September, you're seeing this part of the Chinese market is actually doing resiliently, and also some of the smaller cap indices is actually making new highs, right? So that is telling you that. The money, the liquidity in China is actually going into these sectors. So if you look at for example, the margin lending and margin purchase of the Chinese stocks, then you will see, the margin lending is actually increased together, with these smaller cap tech indices, and that is telling you that not only some of the fund managers are buying into these firms. And also the retail monies is going in growth as well. So I think this remains one of the brightest spots in the Chinese market.
Right. Okay. So that's equities. What about the bond market? I mean, what do you make of this divergence we're seeing, and also the reports about the PBOC checking in on the banks and their bond purchasing activities? What is that telling you about their discomfort with these record lows, which I believe that yield differential is now the widest in around 20 years with the US, no doubt putting pressure on the yuan? That's right.
That's right. I think unless the deflation pressure is easing off, then the bond yield will continue to make new low. We're already making new low. Week after week. I think the PBOC is concerned, because now much of the money is going into the treasury market. In China, the commercial banks are the main buyer of treasury bonds. Now, the problem is that, if you suddenly come up with a really strong stimulating policy, then, the bond yield will shoot up again, and that's going to destroy a lot of positions if the commercial banks having very concentrated positions in treasury. So I think that's what the PBOC is trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid a liquidity squeeze situation where, the bond yield shoot higher because of a very strong policy dose, and, that could ruin some of the commercial banks' balance sheet. So, there is a remote risk, but for right now, I think much of the bank's money is going into the treasury market.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. Hao, thank you very much for breaking it down, the decision for us, the data trio drop that came out just a little while ago, and giving us your perspective in China.
看完洪浩的分享呢，总结下来就3点啊。第一呢，就是现在政策力度还不够，中央呢需要加大财政赤字去刺激经济。第二 ，A500 指数机构和散户都在买啊，算是市场的一个亮点之一吧。第三呢，除非通缩压力缓解，否则这个债券收益率还会接着创下新低。好，这个呢就是洪浩想表达的主要观点啊。这次的分享呢就到这里，谢谢大家。